How's your Friday? Mine's infuriating. Some of you may have heard that nearly 6,000 internal documents have been made public from a few of the biggest social media companies in a major lawsuit filed in California. I did a video last night outlining some of the revelations from Snapchat, which was horrifying. Parents wanted me to dig deeper into YouTube, given that our schools are having our kids watch YouTube to learn. I just spent hours looking into internal documents and communications at YouTube. You are not going to be happy, but you're going to be able to take this video and send it to your school. There's not only damning information about the educational value of YouTube, but there's a lot more to this story. Before I get into it, I'm just going to say my kids will literally never be watching YouTube. Not happening. As I read through these internal documents from YouTube, I want you to understand that this is all information that YouTube knew that they were discussing internally, but they didn't tell us, the users, parents, or children. In fact, they hid it from us. They tried to not have these documents be released to the public. So here we go. We're going to start with child sexual abuse, which is happening on YouTube. 8% of minors claim to have had a sexual interaction on YouTube, engaging sexually with another user. Here's a chart from YouTube's Trust and Safety team titled, "Abuse is not decreasing." They are discussing child exploitation, adults forcing children to upload unsafe and inappropriate abuse videos. The document says that kids continue to upload videos of themselves in risky situations, and YouTube's current deterrence systems are not working. They say they don't know if the child sexual abuse material shared in YouTube Shorts is self-generated, innocent, or has been solicited from them. Another slide from YouTube saying bad actors continue to evade detection. This outlines the movements of one of the many predators who exchanges child sexual abuse material on YouTube. They admit that, quote, "Today we detect comment level grooming violations, but we have known detection gaps in account and conversation level detection that can be exploited by bad actors." Here's an internal presentation slide from YouTube titled "Increasing Number of Children in Therapy After Watching YouTube." Specifically, let's look at the bullet that says typing sex into the search query on YouTube generates graphic results. After watching this content, children are found recreating what they saw in the YouTube videos. Assuming they may be suffering from sexual abuse, overwhelmed parents take their children to therapy. Now there's also a lot of discussion about self-harm and suicide content on YouTube. This is something I saw myself getting served to my 8-year-old on her 3rd grade iPad given by the school in class. Pro self-harm content. But here in the internal documents is where YouTube admits that their algorithm suggests suicide and self-harm content alongside other, quote, helpful advice. And by the way, research by experts in this lawsuit state that increases in suicide rates among young people is often attributed to increasing rates of social media use. YouTube is social media. When it comes to eating disorders, one internal document talks about a 13-year-old female user who was watching YouTube videos to maintain her anorexia, learning how to restrict her eating, how to hide it from her parents. A friend had showed her an initial video, and then YouTube recommended more and more to her. Now, these are all common experiences for teens on YouTube, but what is more common is the addiction, the habitual use, and that is purposeful. Here's a slide from inside YouTube talking about their notifications, that they are a, quote, critical part of YouTube and contribute to addiction. An internal email from a team member named Christos Goodrow says, quote, "The objective of every view should be to drive the most long-term engagement with minimal user effort, aka let's addict them." A 2016 internal presentation from YouTube with their company vision says, quote, "We aspire to create an app that is," and then it has a few bullet points, one being addictive. "Our app experience should compel users to come back more and more often." This is why they went on to launch functions like autoplay, so you just keep watching and watching without having to do anything. There are no stopping points. Here's an internal document presented to YouTube stating that, quote, "Researchers feel that YouTube is built with the intention of being addictive, designed with tricks to encourage binge watching, and recommending that technology and well-being need to meet. but they continued on adding more and more functionality to keep users watching. Here is a document from 2019 by YouTube researchers. They classify 10% of young users from 13 to 24 years old as, quote, habitual heavy users, meaning they watch over 2 hours of YouTube every day, with 7% of those teens watching YouTube past midnight on school nights. They call these kids teen night owls. The researchers found that these teen night owls were 88% more likely to have emotional and behavioral problems than other young users. YouTube's own research found 20% of young users say that YouTube interferes with their work, their school, or their homework. But YouTube continued to push on, attracting an even younger audience, which YouTube states is critical to their future success. So let's talk about the targeting of young children now. YouTube Kids launched in 2015, supposedly a safe viewing space for young children, but the parental controls were nowhere to be found. Those came years later, so we were to take them at their word. And even when they rolled out Family Link screen time controls, they were only made available on Android and Chromebook devices, despite knowing that 65% of US users are on iOS. And arguably the most addictive feature, the autoplay, stayed on YouTube Kids with no way to turn it off for nearly 6 years after YouTube Kids launched. They wanted the kids' videos to, quote, play forever without intervention. Here's a super interesting internal chart during that time shared within YouTube, analyzing why parents give kids devices. It visualizes an endless cycle from giving them the device to it becoming a coping mechanism that kids rely on to kids melting down when they don't have it. YouTube then stated, this situation erodes parents' authority and ability to set and enforce limits. Yet for 4 years after the launch of YouTube Kids, they only made this platform available on smartphones and tablets. Something the child could hold, not something that could be put up on a large screen or a computer where parents can keep an eye on it. They enabled this cycle to continue, eroding parent-child relationships everywhere. Now we move to teenagers. YouTube didn't provide parental controls for teenagers until 2024, last year. And none of that really matters because according to YouTube, most young users access YouTube in a logged out state, which means they're just getting access to everything, unrestricted. And when it comes to YouTube and how they feel about kids, here's a quote from the Senior Director for Product Management, James Besser. He was once asked, is there a strategic value to having a kids product at YouTube? His answer, yes, they grow up. Let's end with a little bit of conversation about YouTube use at school. If we go back to 2012, YouTube is having internal discussions about how more than 70% of schools were actually blocking YouTube. They categorized this under, quote, problems we're trying to solve. Despite their own findings in their own documents that YouTube interferes with learning and promotes distraction, that the blue light from the screen results in lower academic performance in students, they created a YouTube EDU project that was geared toward getting YouTube into schools and increasing watch time, not bettering learning. And somehow this project worked because rough stats show that today, 80% of US schools now deliver content to children through YouTube. We've been duped. Last thing I want to share, which is the most recent thing that I found. In April of this year, 2025, a YouTube executive was asked, how are we measuring well-being? His response was, quote, current answer, we're not. This is a platform that kids are using at school, at home. Parents believe the lie that it's safe. They think they can trust parental controls. And just a few months ago, an executive at YouTube said that they're not even measuring the well-being of their young users. Maybe because it's so bad for them, so addictive and harmful, so exploitative that they've decided not to measure that it just looks bad for them. That if parents knew, they would get their kids off of YouTube. They would demand that schools block YouTube from campus entirely. That is where we're at, and that is what needs to happen. There will only be more to come from the documents that will be made available through this social media addiction lawsuit filed in California. I will keep everyone updated on that, but I hope this video was helpful in whatever you are trying to do at home and at school to protect your children from harmful and addictive platforms like YouTube. Happy Friday. I need a drink.